And welcome to another episode of the Kat Mak Talk Show. I am so honored and blessed that I have Tammy Ward with me here today. She's the founder of Tammy Ward Speaks and TLW Yoga and Wellness. But you know what? She's got a story that I'm not going to say that is none like other, but it's none like other because it's Tammy's story. Tammy Ward Speaks comes from 24 years of being in the police force, in the Fed Police in Canada. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It was a boys' club. You faced a lot of crap, but you love what you did. You love what you did because helping people out there to be safe is no mean feat. I call you an amazing woman because you are a first responder. And personally, I don't think the world gives enough credit and assistance to first responders, whether you are in the police, in the medical field, a firefighter, a nurse, a doctor, a nurse's assistant, the cleaner at the hospital. They're all first responders because they all help each other. AMBOs, let's not forget about those. So I thought I'd throw that in for measure because it sits home with me because I'm a burn survivor. So I thank the first responders that helped me not die. So you're a retired Fed police.
Yes.
I will quote something that you wrote recently, and I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
I did not survive trauma to remain silent. And I went, because my podcast is all about sharing your voice. If I do not collaborate with you to be able to share your voice because you have an air of change, then I think, this is me personally, I've missed my calling because my calling, I'm the conduit. This is why I started my podcast 2 years ago. Having said that, with your background in policing and your personal experiences, what was the moment that you said, you know what, no more, I'm out of here. I'm done, changing.
It was a combination of a couple of things. We had a shooting. So we had 5 officers shot, 3 fatally. And
On your shift?
I was around the corner when the first shots were fired. It was in my
Wow.
home. I was there, not on duty. I was there to attend an event the next day. I was there for a crime prevention conference that I was supposed to speak at the following morning. And I was literally just around the corner when the first shots were fired. So I left my friend's house that I was visiting and went straight into the detachment to help set up command center and do what was needed. And then I ended up driving back home to where I was posted now, which is almost a 2-hour drive. Picked up my gun and my uniform, drove back, went back into work until the following morning. And that's when they caught him, was the following day at night. And I ended up being asked to stay for 2 weeks, which I did because I knew the area. Everyone that was on shift and working in that detachment were given 2 weeks off because it was a lot to deal with. And I ended up being on the team the men were killed on. And after the 2 weeks, I was asked to stay for a month as the operational NCO for that watch because there were so many members on the team from all over the place. Most of them had never even been to Moncton, let alone worked there. And where it was my hometown and I did police there at one point, I could give directions like, if you're going down Main Street, look for Shoppers Drug Mart, take a left. Whereas some of the dispatchers weren't the ones that were normally working because they were still off and they were trying to use Google Maps to direct people. And I know the areas I could just help that way. And then my 1 month secondment turned into another 3 and I stayed there. And during that time period, within the 4 months, 12 days after the shootings, I lost a friend who was a retired RCMP officer by suicide. And unfortunately, I was the person that attended. And at the end of 4 months, it wasn't good. At the end of 4 months, when I came back home the following week, I had another friend commit suicide. And that's when I hit a wall and I was off for 5 months. And that's why talking about mental health is so important to me. When I was in Moncton and I was the operational NCO for my watch, I was making sure everybody else was okay. I was taking care of all the guys and a couple of the girls. There's a lot more men than there are women. And I was so focused on taking care of everybody else and running a shift, and everything was chaos. The last thing I ever thought about was myself and my way
So
of
trauma
dealing.
on the job, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real.
And I always talk about mental health and how we should be looking out for things, not just the obvious things. Like, you all know when someone's come in after being on a bender, or when someone is literally eating their emotions. But everyone just thought I was a super healthy girl that ran every day. Well, I ran before my shift. I ran sometimes after my shift. I would run to the point of throwing up or almost throwing up before I would run back to the detachment. And in 4 months, I lost almost 20 pounds, which
Wow.
for me is a lot. I'm not very big to start with, and which would be, I don't know, give or take 10% of my body weight or more. And my blood pressure, I'm one of those weird people. It goes down instead of up with stress.
Because you're
So
tiny.
yeah. So what happened was I ended up having to be off work, and the doctor kind of laughed because he said to me, he said, "You're not allowed to go back to work until you gain weight, you bring your blood pressure up, you start eating, and you start sleeping." And then he kind of chuckled and said, "I've never ever said that before, because, it's usually lose weight, bring down your blood pressure." And I'm like, yeah, I'm an anomaly. What can I say? I don't do anything the normal way.
But are you really an anomaly? Because I think that you discuss quite a few things in what we've talked about. PTSD is real. You're in a boys' club. Domestic violence is real, and all the stuff that you've experienced. So you're not an anomaly. So how did you deal with all that stuff?
Still dealing with it, actually.
Yeah.
I have amazing days. I have really bad days. There's certain dates that are really hard for me. June the 4th is the shooting. And then 12 days later was my friend. October the 6th is another date. So there's certain times of the year that I find really hard, and I work around those. I started changing things. So instead of being alone, I used to isolate when things were really heavy. Christmas is a really hard time for me because when I was policing, if you get called to anything over the Christmas holidays, it wasn't nice. It was always horrible. Taking kids away from their parents at Christmas, going to a domestic, you still respond to collisions. People are still hurt. People still die. Those are my memories of Christmas, that most people think about a big turkey dinner and presents. Well, most of my memories aren't so nice. And then one of the times that I was assaulted was a week before Christmas as well, when I was really hurt bad. So that weighs heavy. And so I just started making new traditions. So this year, the date's December the 13th for me, but this year, December the 13th actually fell on a Saturday. And I said, okay, I'm making new traditions. And I sent out an email to 17 of my friends and said, okay, we're doing this. I'm hosting a potluck and a Yankee swap. Bring whatever you want to drink. If you plan on drinking more than one, plan on bringing your toothbrush and your pajamas. And we'll just do it over as well. And only one or two people knew what that date actually was. And I ended up having 13 girls show up on the 13th of December for my Christmas.
Wow. That is not an accident. No
No.
accident there.
No.
So how did that make you feel?
I felt really good because that many people chose to spend Saturday night close to the holidays with me and with, all the girls together. And I have friends that are in different pockets from the gym, from my yoga, from work, from different places. And so not everybody in the room knew everybody, but it was like everybody that was meant to be there were there. And I could just see the connections. And even the Yankee swap, when we were doing it, some of the presents people picked were like spot on. It was as if it was purposely bought for them. And it just
That is such a great tradition. We don't really do that in Australia. Some people do that lived in the US. And I think it's so much fun because it just makes that connection. I love the fact that you just took a stance, even though you were feeling less than. It's like, if I don't make a change, I'm not going to make a change. So I want to create this date and go and create new memories. So the past memory is less than. The memory will always be there because you still need to work through it. And it's work in progress because everything is. I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm really triggered with some stuff. I'm born at Christmas. So, you know, there's all that stuff, but I'm okay with it now. My mother died a day before my birthday. And people say to me, "You poor thing." And I'm like, actually, I'm not a poor thing. I think it's a blessing. If my mother died on my birthday, I'm like, she gave birth to me. It's beautiful. I celebrate her life. I don't go, poor me. See, I had to flip the narrative because I would have been the poor me. And you're so positive that you just got to flip the switch somehow, but you can't do it alone. And I'm so glad that you reached out because I dare say that has something to do with Tammy Ward Speaks.
Definitely. It's about building community. And I think as women, we really need community. We all go through different phases of life. Some people are married, some people get divorced, some people like me are just single forever. And, I might adopt another dog. Who knows? But that's about my dating pool is going to the SPCA and finding a new dog. But it's what we make of it. And I'm very fortunate at this place in my life that I do have a lot of amazing women that have come into my life. And those relationships are very, very important and sacred to me. So I make an effort to put energy into it and it comes back tenfold. And we're there to help, to support each other, good, bad, on every day. And I think that's really important. And I think a lot of women are missing that. Like when I was in policing, when I first started, I was the only girl on my team. I had about 18, 19 men. I was the only girl. And then I went into major crime. I was the only female officer in major crime. And I remember being in the office one evening and a member came in and asked for a specific officer. And I said, "Oh, he's off tonight." And he goes, "Oh, well, that's kind of odd that the only person working an evening shift is a secretary." And I looked at him with maybe a little F-bomb in there. And I said, "Do I look like an effing secretary?" And he just looked at me.
You're suited up.
Yeah.
What is it, a costume?
It was a plainclothes position. So I wasn't in uniform, but it was just, why would you presume that I'm a secretary because I'm in a major crime office in the evening?
Slap in the face or what? How did it make you feel?
Oh, it was
crap.
infuriating because it was like, no, I'm just smarter than you. That's why I'm not in general duty. And that's why I'm here. And your ass is outside in a police car. It just, it's just so infuriating. And I've had it happen where people assume I'm somebody's wife if I go to functions that not wearing a uniform. I remember going to a function when I was running 4 detachments and one of the wives of a member was speaking with me and she goes, "Oh, whose wife are you?" And I looked at her and I went, "No one's. I'm actually your husband's boss. That's who I am." And she just looked at me, but it's like, it's bad enough when men do that, but when other women do it to us, it's so condescending. It's like,
it is. So on that note, because I want to ask you, in your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions? Because I think you're leading into this, that people still have about gender-based violence. And what do you wish women and the communities truly understand? Because I think you're leading into this and it's really important because that also changes who you are, why you left, and what you're doing now. And what you're doing now by sharing your voice and building your community is amazing. So please expand if you can.
sure. So with gender-based violence, the biggest misconception is that it only happens to uneducated people. It only happens to poor people. It only happens to new immigrants. It only happens to, no, it doesn't. It happens to the prettiest white girls. It happens to the biggest, the skinniest, the tallest. There is no divide. I have been in homes where people didn't have a lot of money. I was in a home where the man was a university professor. So there is no stereotype when it comes to violence. And that is one of the biggest misconceptions is that everyone thinks it has to be, but it doesn't. And the other really big misconception is, and I've heard people say it, and it's because they don't understand. And they'll say, "Well, why doesn't she just leave?" It's never that easy. There's so many mitigating circumstances. Where does she go? Where does she bring her children? What happens if she's been a stay-at-home mom for X amount of years? Where is she going to get the money to pay for things? There's so many layers, and people don't understand that there's a circle of violence. Nobody goes out on a first date, get punched in the face and go, oh my God, he's a nice guy. I can't wait to see him again. No, it starts out differently. And unfortunately, some women that I have worked with grew up in homes where there was violence. There was violence against their mother, against themselves, against all the children. And I remember one lady I spoke with, and she shared, she said, when he hit me, I just thought I deserved it because that was the only thing I knew. My father always told me I was stupid and worthless. He hit me. He hit my sister. He hit my mom. When my husband did the same, I didn't know that there was anything different. And so it can be generational as well. It's lived experience. And then it depends. Like some people may be in a better position financially to get out, or maybe they don't have children. So it's easier to leave when you don't have children. I mean, there is as many barriers and solutions that I can think of. There's always going to be another barrier for a different person because until you're in their shoes, you have no idea. And that's the biggest thing I say to people is don't judge unless you've actually walked her shoes.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to what I asked when I spoke about earlier. I didn't survive trauma to remain silent. So how did you decide one day I'm going to launch Tammy Ward Speaks? And what is that all about? Because I'd love to know more. And because if I can share what you do, there were people out there that will reach you and go, hey, man, she's in Canada. I might need to speak.
But she would love to come back to Australia and have a Barbie.
Come to Australia.
Yes.
You were not far from me. So, yeah.
I came back in a heartbeat. One of the things, I guess, before I retired was I was at a point where I was no longer wearing a uniform. I worked plain clothes. And I just came to a realization one day that I can still help and serve people without my uniform. And so that was the first step. And then a part of the speaking, as I shared earlier before we were on, was that I want to be the person that I needed when I was at my lowest, when I was experiencing violence in my home, when I was dealing with harassment in the workplace. There wasn't somebody that I could listen to or talk with, or there wasn't the resources that there are now. So that is my goal, is to be that voice. If I can help one person, then I've succeeded. And that is talking like it is tonight. It's writing my book. It's writing my blog post. It's a journal I've created that I'm going to put out to print that is specifically for survivors of violence so that it engages them the way they should be. Because some days writing one word is all they're capable of. And that should be the prompt, not something that is therapeutic from a doctor's perspective, but from a lived perspective and offering things to help people.
I love that you said that it's from a lived perspective, because you're an absolute product of the product. And as much as we hear, say, do, as my dog is barking, it comes from a lived experience. And until you're ready, you're never going to be ready. And I like the fact that you said it could be just one word. Because as women, and I'm just talking personally, as women, our brain gets so wide and overwhelmed. We're like, oh my God, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. This is happening to me. So therefore I need to do X, Y, Z. And then we fall into a heap and we fall into this and we just sit there and rock. Doesn't have to be that way. The fact that you took that one stance on December 13th, it could be for those out there listening to this podcast and listening to these women, the two of us, that have gone through lived experiences. It really is that one thing that you just said that can change your future. And we understand the past is gone, but you still need to work through your ish. Could be that one word. And I love that you said that, because sometimes we go to professionals or we go to Western doctors and they prescribe all these drugs, and that's all great, but it's just masked because we're not doing the inner work. And I'm not saying that Western medicine is bad. I think it needs to be a combination of the mixture of everything if you need it.
If you need it. I couldn't agree
Because,
more
yeah,
because when I hit rock bottom after the 2 suicides and those shootings, I was very, very medicated. And unfortunately, you can't heal when you're that medicated because you don't feel anything. And if you don't feel anything, you can't process anything. And things are going to process at your own speed. In my case, to my detriment was the RCMP kept wanting me to come back to work. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. But they kept trying to force me to come back, even though I knew I wasn't ready. My family doctor, the psychiatrist, psychologist that I was all seeing, everyone was saying no, but they just wanted to check a box that I was back. And there's a big difference between sitting in a chair and being completely numb to the world and coming back feeling that you have something to contribute to the world.
yeah. I think worthiness is there's another word, worthiness. I know it's been thrown around like we drink milk. However, it's true. It's true. Nobody wakes up wanting to feel like crap.
No.
No one does. No one does. So for those in closing, for those listening, what is one step that somebody can take today to feel more safe, more worthy, and more supported?
The biggest thing is to ask for help. Do not believe, and that was my thing, do not believe you can do all of it by yourself because you cannot. The best thing you can do is to talk to a person you trust. And if you're dealing with violence, definitely talk to the police. But I know that's not everyone's comfort zone. But trust somebody. And I know if you reach out to the various shelters here, we have outreach workers, they can help people with safety planning. So you can create an exit strategy so that when you do leave, when it's your time to leave, you can do so as safely as possible. But the biggest thing, whether it's just feeling blah, getting out of violence, up leveling yourself, it's to ask for help. So if you want a better job, ask for help. What do I need? Well, here's some courses. How do I get the courses? How do I get the funding? Ask somebody. Like there's so many things that really all come back to ask somebody because you don't know what you don't know. And if you ask somebody, you're going to learn what you need to know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, because I know you have TWL yoga and wellness as well. So in closing, what's all that about?
I've been teaching fitness since I was 19 years old. So, a few years. Okay.
Just two.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wish.
Just two.
When I was off, so I've always taught else, like in gyms and different places. When I was off work for 5 months, my home is out of the city. It's on 2.5 acres of land, and I have a full walkout basement. So what I did was converted my walkout basement into a studio space. And I just started teaching for myself out of my house. I did some extra training so I could offer trauma sensitive yoga for women to help them work through, because sometimes our issues are in our tissues and we just got to release them and allow the body to heal in all elements, not just our mind, but sometimes we just need to open up our heart chakra or open up the hips and open up the body to relax, to release tensions and trauma that are inside. I've been teaching out of my home studio since January of 2016, and I still 3 classes a week. I was up to 8 before I retired, which is a lot. And then COVID kind of changed the whole world. So I'm doing 3 a week.
You're basically doing what works for you now. And the fact that you said it's for trauma based, like, wow, she's integrated that as well. I love that you've done that. So it's specific type of yoga that helps women that have gone through trauma. Like, I love that.
I was
I love
doing
that they're
those.
all integrated.
I'm just doing gentle yin practices, and I do some one-on-one trainings with people. So I design programs if they come to my studio, or I do it virtually just to help people with what they need. And I will create programs for them and help them with what they need to be more bendy or to release or to just feel good or get energy,
I
whatever
feel
it
happy. I feel happy.
Then
Tammy, thank you so much for joining me. I love what you do. I'm sorry that you went through what you did. However, it wouldn't have made you who you are today.
No, it wouldn't.
And one word is what I've taken out of this conversation. All it takes is one word. I love that you said that. So, Tammy, thank you so much. Have an amazing night, awesome morning, and awesome afternoon. So please reach out to Tammy or myself if you feel the need to share your voice and share your ish and do your stuff, because you know what? As Tammy said, you ain't alone, mate. You're not alone.
No. There's a
But
lot of
yeah,
women that together we're stronger.
yeah, absolutely. Bye for now. Appreciate you. See ya.